The void around Kepler 442 sparkled with alien victory lights. Hundreds of ships from 12 different species floated in perfect formation, their strange hulls glowing with colors that hurt human eyes to look at. Some ships looked like giant jellyfish made of metal, others twisted through space like living serpents, and the largest ones resembled floating cities with thousands of weapon ports. Admiral Kexvara of the Zephyrian Empire stood tall on his command deck, his forearms crossed, in satisfaction. His scaled skin shifted from blue to deep purple, showing his pleasure. Through the massive viewing wall he watched his fleet's celebration, streams of bright plasma shooting between ships like fireworks, creating patterns that told stories of victory in the ancient Zephyrian way. 3 months, he said to his bridge crew, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 50 star systems. 3 months of patient hunting, and finally these stubborn humans understand their place. His secondary arms gestured toward the tactical display, where red dots showed the remains of what had once been a small but determined human colonial fleet. Commander Thak Zion, whose species looked like walking crystals, clicked his approval. The mining stations fell faster than expected. Their plasma shields were primitive compared to our quantum disruptors, and their ships, added Captain Velnara, her gaseous form shifting inside her containment suit, barely worth the energy. We spent destroying them. I counted 12 human vessels total. 12, against our armada of hundreds. The alien officers shared what passed for laughter among their species, sounds like grinding metal, whistling wind, and electronic static mixing together. They had good reason to be confident. The Galactic Coalition had sent its finest warriors, its most advanced technology, and its deadliest weapons to this remote system. The humans had responded with what looked like modified cargo ships and mining equipment fitted with basic weapons. Far below, on the damaged colony ship New Busan, Captain Kim Dae-ho pressed his face against a cracked viewport and watched the alien celebration. His ship had been beautiful once, sleek white hull decorated with the Korean flag and Earth's United Colonies symbol. Now scorch marks covered its sides, 3 of its 4 engines were dead, and emergency lights flickered. Throughout the corridors, the bridge was barely functional. Sparks occasionally shot from damaged control panels, and the air recycling system made worrying noises. Only 7 of his original crew of 43 were still alive. They huddled together in the dim emergency lighting, their faces showing the exhaustion of people who had fought impossible odds for too long. "Communications are still down," reported Park Minji, her fingers dancing over a console held together with emergency tape. Her usually perfect uniform was torn and stained, but her voice remained steady. "I can't reach Earth, Mars Command, or even the outer colonies. Something is jamming everything." Engineer Lee Jun-sik limped over from the power core, his left leg in a makeshift splint. "Captain, hull breach in Section 7 is getting worse. We've got maybe 6 hours of air left, 8 if we shut down life support in the cargo areas." The youngest crew member, pilot Han Ji-min, looked up from where he was trying to repair a navigation console. "Sir, maybe we should signal surrender. At least then the civilians in the colony domes might survive." Captain Kim turned away from the viewport, his jaw set in determination. "No. Seoul Station gave me direct orders before we lost contact. Earth High Command has contingency plans for situations exactly like this. But sir," Lee Jun-sik whispered, glancing nervously at the alien fleet outside, "look at them. Hundreds of ships, weapons we can't even understand, technology that makes our best equipment look like stone tools. What could Earth possibly send that would make a difference?" Kim walked to his command chair, its cushioning torn from battle. "Damage. Remember your history, Jun-sik. Remember what happened when the Mongols thought they had conquered Korea. Remember what the Japanese learned in 1592. Remember what the world discovered about Korean determination during the war in 1950. He sat down heavily, wincing from wounds he refused to treat while his crew needed attention first. Korea has always been underestimated. Earth has always been underestimated. Outside, the alien celebration continued. Massive holographic displays showed images of human ships being destroyed, human colonies surrendering, human prisoners being taken. The 12 species of the Galactic Coalition had worked together for the first time in centuries, united by their belief that humanity needed to be stopped before they spread further into civilized space. Admiral Kexavara raised a ceremonial weapon, its energy field casting rainbow patterns across his bridge. Today marks the end of human expansion beyond their little solar system. Let this victory remind every species in the galaxy what happens when primitives try to play with their betters. But deep in the damaged computers of the New Busan, a single light blinked steadily. A beacon broadcasting a coded message that somehow cut through all the alien jamming technology. A message that traveled faster than light toward a blue world circling a yellow star, where something waited in the dark between worlds, something the galaxy had never seen before. The alien celebration had been going on for 3 hours when the first strange readings appeared on the sensor screens. Deep in the belly of the Zephyrian flagship, Technician Velnara floated inside her containment suit, her gaseous form shifting nervously as she stared at displays that showed impossible data. Her species, the Ethereal Collective, were known throughout the galaxy as the best sensor operators. Their natural ability to exist in multiple dimensions at once made them perfect for detecting things others couldn't see. But right now, Velnara was seeing something that made no sense, according to every law of physics she knew. "Computer, run full diagnostic on sensor array 7, she whispered, her voice creating small lightning patterns inside her suit. The diagnostic came back clean. She tried array 12, then array 15, all working perfectly. But the readings remained the same. Massive gravitational distortions approaching from the outer edge of the star system, moving at speeds that should have torn apart anything larger than a small asteroid. "For these objects," she muttered, adjusting her instruments for the 5th time, "they're showing mass signatures equivalent to small moons, but they're moving at 0.75 light speed. That's impossible. Nothing that massive can move that fast without tearing itself apart." On the command deck above, Admiral Kexavara was sharing victory drinks with his fellow commanders when Velnara's report reached him. The liquid in his ceremonial cup was still glowing with bioluminescent patterns when Commander Thexalon's crystal form chimed with dismissal. "Sensor ghosts," Thexalon said, his voice creating harmonic frequencies that made the metal walls ring. "Our quantum disruptors probably knocked some asteroids out of orbit. The gravitational waves from our weapons fire are still echoing through the system." But Velnara wasn't convinced. She had been operating sensors for over 2 centuries, had detected everything from cloaked warships to interdimensional parasites. These readings were different. They had structure, purpose, organization. 7 distinct signatures, moving in perfect formation, their approach calculated and precise. Across the fleet, other sensor operators were starting to notice the same anomalies. On the serpentine ship, Sis Thirak, a reptilian technician, hissed, in confusion, as his bio-neural sensors showed impossible readings. The living ship itself seemed nervous, its organic hull rippling with stress patterns. "Fleet Command," the reptilian reported, "my ship's nervous system is detecting something approaching, something big. She's scared, and she's never been scared before." Similar reports were flooding in from across the alien armada. The crystal ships of the Nexus Empire were humming with alarm frequencies. The mechanical drones of the Hive worlds were calculating impossible probabilities. Even the ancient energy beings of the Void Touched were expressing concern through fluctuations in local space-time. Admiral Kexvara's celebration was beginning to sour when his chief science officer, a being that looked like a walking tree covered in electronic sensors, approached with a worried expression. "Admiral," the tree creature said, its bark crackling with electrical discharges, "we're receiving coherent reports from 47 different sensor operators across the fleet. Whatever's approaching isn't random debris. The objects are maintaining formation, adjusting course and accelerating in patterns that suggest intelligent control." Meanwhile, on the crippled New Busan, Park Minji was fighting with her damaged communications array when something incredible happened. Through all the alien jamming, through all the interference from damaged systems, a crystal-clear signal cut through like a knife through fog. Her hands flew over the controls, fine-tuning the frequency, her heart racing as Korean military encryption Codes filled her screen. She had memorized these patterns during her training at Busan Naval Academy, had dreamed of seeing them during their months of siege. "Captain," she shouted, her voice cracking with excitement. "Sir, you need to see this." Kim Dae-ho limped over from where he had been checking on wounded crewman Lee Jun-sik. His face was grim, marked by 3 months of impossible stress, but when he saw the communications display, his expression transformed completely. "IFF signals," Park Min-ji said, tears streaming down her face. "Korean Deep Space Command codes. Military grade, Alpha priority. They're real, sir. They're here." The message that appeared on screen was simple, direct, and more beautiful than any poetry Kim had ever read. "New Busan, this is Admiral Cho Hyun-woo of the Earthship Dokdo. Hold your position. Cavalry's here." Kim grabbed the communications panel so hard his knuckles went white. "Admiral Cho? The Cho Hyun-woo? The ghost of Titan Station?" Every Korean spacer knew the stories. Admiral Cho had fought impossible battles in the outer colonies, had held off pirate fleets with ships held together by determination and spare parts. If Earth had sent him, they weren't sending a rescue mission. They were sending a message. Back. On the alien flagship, panic was starting to spread like a virus through the fleet's communication networks. Velnara's readings were now being confirmed by dozens of independent sources. The 7 objects were decelerating from near light speed, their gravitational signatures becoming clearer as they approached. "Admiral," Velnara reported, her gaseous form now glowing bright red with alarm. "Preliminary scans suggest these objects are artificial constructs, ships, sir, but they're massive. The smallest one is showing a hull length of over 8 kilometers. "Admiral." Keksavara felt his confidence drain away like water through broken glass. 8 kilometers? His own flagship, pride of the Zephyrian fleet, was barely 2 kilometers long. What could humanity have built that dwarfed the galaxy's most powerful warships? "Impossible," he whispered, but his voice carried no conviction. "They're humans, primitives." Their entire fleet was 12 modified cargo ships. But even as he spoke, his tactical displays were updating with new information. The approaching objects were slowing down, dropping out of near-light speed with precision that spoke of technology beyond anything in the galactic databases. And they were heading straight for the fleet. The celebration was over. The real battle was about to begin. The edge of the Kepler 442 system suddenly erupted with flashes of twisted light as 7 massive objects dropped out of faster-than-light travel. But these weren't the graceful, curved ships the galaxy was used to seeing. These were predators, made of metal and fury, their angular black hulls absorbing light like hungry shadows. The lead ship was a monster that stretched nearly 10 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move in ways that hurt alien eyes to follow. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the scales of some ancient dragon, and at its front, a ram-like structure jutted forward like the horn of a charging bull. This was the ESS Dokdo, flagship of Earth's deep strike fleet, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. On its bridge, Admiral Cho Hyun-woo stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face showing the calm of someone who had fought in the asteroid wars, survived the Titan Station siege, and earned the nickname Ghost of the Outer Ring for battles the public would never know about. His grey hair was cut military short, and his eyes held the kind of focus that came from 30 years of impossible victories. "Tactical report," he said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "Tactical." Officer Yoon So-young, a young woman whose fingers danced across holographic displays with the precision of a concert pianist, looked up from her station. 237 enemy vessels confirmed, Admiral. 12 different species, mixed technology levels. They have us outnumbered 34-1. Admiral Cho's mouth curved into what his enemies had learned to fear, a smile that promised nothing good for anyone standing against him. "Excellent odds, So-young, just the way we like it." Behind him, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. Captain Park Yoon-hee, his second-in-command, was coordinating with the other 6 ships in their formation. Communications Officer Lee Min-ho was already preparing the message that would change galactic history forever. Open a channel to the alien. Fleet, Admiral Cho ordered. All frequencies, maximum power, override their jamming if necessary. The message that cut through space carried the weight of Earth's hidden fury. Zephyrian forces, this is Admiral Cho Hyun-woo of the Korean Earth Fleet. You have attacked human colonies, destroyed human ships, and killed human civilians. You have 60 seconds to begin immediate withdrawal from human territory, or we will remove you ourselves. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kexvara burst into laughter that echoed through his command center. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke to his officers, his scaled skin shifting to bright orange with amusement. "Did you hear that?" he roared. 7 ships, 7 primitive human ships, demanding that our entire armada retreat. The audacity. Sai is almost admirable. Commander Thexalen's crystal form chimed with what sounded like electronic laughter. Perhaps they think their larger size will intimidate us, but size means nothing without proper weapons or shields. Captain Velnara's gaseous form swirled with colors that indicated humor among her species. "Should we respond, Admiral? Perhaps explain to them the mathematics of their situation?" But Admiral Kexvara was already moving toward his weapons control station. "No words necessary. Let's show these humans what happens when children play with adult weapons. All ships target the lead vessel. Full quantum disruptor barrage on my mark." His weapons officer, an insectoid creature with 6 arms that could operate multiple control systems simultaneously, began the targeting sequence. But then something impossible happened. His screens went dark. Not damaged, not malfunctioning, simply dark, as if they had been turned off by an outside force. "Sir?" The weapons officer clicked nervously. "Targeting systems are non-responsive. I'm showing total system failure across all weapon arrays." Admiral Kexvara's laughter died in his throat. "What? Run diagnostics immediately?" But the diagnostics couldn't run. The computers that controlled them were also offline. Across the bridge, system after system began reporting failures. Navigation, communications, defensive shields, even basic life support controls were becoming unresponsive. Similar reports were flooding in from across the entire alien fleet. On the Serpentine bioship, Sus Thirak, the reptilian captain was discovering that his living vessel's nervous system had been somehow severed from its weapon clusters. The ship was alive and aware, but it couldn't fight. The crystal ships of the Nexus Empire found their harmonic resonance chambers silent, their ability to focus energy into devastating beams completely blocked. The mechanical drones of the Hive worlds were receiving error messages in programming languages they didn't recognize, their weapon systems locked down by code that seemed to rewrite itself faster than they could counter it. Even the ancient energy beings of the Void Touched were experiencing something they had never encountered before. Their ability to manipulate local space-time was being suppressed by fields of energy they couldn't identify or understand. On the Dokdo, Tactical. Officer Yun-So Young monitored the electronic warfare systems that were making the impossible happen. Electronic countermeasures are active across all enemy vessels, Admiral. Their weapons, shields, and navigation systems are locked down. They can move, but they can't fight. Admiral Cho nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Now they can listen without distractions." He opened the channel again, his voice now carrying a tone that made veteran spacers across the galaxy feel cold. "Your weapons are offline. Your shields are down. Your communications are being monitored. You now have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will demonstrate why Earth built ships like these." The 7 Korean Dreadnoughts began moving forward, their massive hulls cutting through space with predatory grace. They didn't move like the curved flowing ships of galactic civilization. They moved like sharks smelling blood in the water, like wolves closing in on cornered prey. Admiral Kexvara stared at his dead control panels and felt something his species hadn't experienced in over 1,000 years of galactic conquest. Fear. Pure, cold, logical fear of something that was clearly superior to everything he had ever known. The humans hadn't just brought bigger ships. They had brought technology that made the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look like children playing with toys. Admiral Kexvara's 30-second ultimatum expired in silence. Across his disabled fleet, Alien commanders frantically tried to restore their weapons systems, their crews working desperately to break free from whatever technology had locked down their ships. But the humans had given them a choice, and their pride had made the decision for them. All ships, Admiral Kexvara commanded through emergency backup communications. Ramming speed. If our weapons won't fire, we'll crush them with our numbers. The alien armada lurched forward like a wounded beast, 200 ships converging on 7 human vessels. The Zephyrian bioships pulsed with angry red light, their living hulls preparing for impact. Crystal ships of the Nexus Empire vibrated, with harmonic frequencies meant to shatter enemy armor. The serpentine vessels twisted through space like striking snakes, their flexible hulls designed to wrap around and crush opponents. But as the alien fleet charged forward, something unprecedented happened in galactic warfare history. The Korean dreadnoughts didn't retreat to safe firing distance. They didn't try to maintain formation in defensive positions. Instead, they accelerated straight into the heart of the enemy fleet, like arrows shot from a bow. Captain Han Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the ESS Seoul, her hands steady on the command controls, as her ship plunged into a formation of 30 alien vessels that each outmassed her ship by significant margins. Her voice remained calm as she spoke into her communicator. All ships execute pattern Tiguk. Remember your training. We are the predators here. Pattern Tiguk was something the galaxy had never seen before, a combat formation based on ancient Korean philosophy, adapted for space warfare by minds that understood both the art of war and the dance of celestial bodies. The 7 human ships split apart and reformed like wolves separating prey from the herd, each vessel taking responsibility for isolating and destroying specific sections of the alien fleet. The ESS Seoul dove straight through the center of a Zephyrian formation, her armored hull absorbing energy blasts that should have vaporized any known material. But Korean military science had spent decades in secret, developing armor based on principles that the galaxy's physicists had never discovered. The ship's hull didn't just deflect the alien weapons, it absorbed their energy and redirected it into the ship's own power systems. "Direct hit from quantum disruptor array," reported Damage Control Officer Kim Min-seok. "Hull integrity at 97%. Power levels actually increased by 12%. Captain Han smiled grimly. "Good. Now show them what real weapons look like." The Soul's response was devastating. Arrays of weapons that looked nothing like galactic standard designs opened fire with energies that seemed to bend space itself. Where alien ships had been, suddenly there were expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal. Meanwhile, the ESS Busan was demonstrating another aspect of human warfare that the galaxy had never encountered. Captain Lee So-ra guided her ship in patterns that seemed to defy physics, her vessel moving through 3-dimensional space like a dancer performing an impossible ballet. She wasn't just fighting the alien ships, she was playing with them. Engineering. "Give me everything the gravity manipulators can handle," she commanded. The Busan suddenly changed direction in ways that should have turned her crew into paste against the bulkheads. But Korean artificial gravity technology had solved problems that other species didn't even know existed. The ship twisted through space, avoiding incoming fire while positioning herself perfectly to destroy multiple targets with single shots. On Tui. The flagship Dokdo, Lieutenant Nam Soo-jin watched her tactical display with the focused intensity of someone conducting a deadly orchestra. Each human ship was an instrument in a symphony of destruction, and she was helping Admiral Cho coordinate their devastating performance. "Enemy fleet strength down to 70%, she reported. "The crystal ships are trying to form a resonance barrier, but the Incheon is moving to break their formation." Admiral Cho watched the battle unfold with the satisfaction of someone whose plans were working perfectly. "Signal the Daegu. Have Captain Park execute flanking maneuver 7. Time to show them what happens when you corner a predator." The ESS Daegu was the smallest of the Korean ships, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in pure lethality. Captain Park Jin-woo had earned his position by being the most aggressive fighter pilot in Korean Space Command, and now he commanded a ship that fought like a giant fighter craft. The Daegu spun through the alien formation like a blade through water, her weapon systems firing in patterns that created geometric shapes of destruction. Alien ships that had stood in formation moments before were suddenly scattered wreckage, their commanders never understanding what had hit them. Admiral Kexavara watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like nothing in galactic history. These humans didn't follow the established rules of space combat. They didn't maintain safe distances, didn't engage in the formal exchanges of fire that had characterized warfare for millennia. Instead, they fought like wild animals that had learned to use technology, unpredictable, vicious, and terrifyingly effective. "Sir," his communications officer reported, panic clear in his multi-tonal voice, "we've lost contact with the entire 7th Squadron. The crystal ships are reporting catastrophic harmonic disruption. The bioships are—" "Sir, they're screaming." The living ships of the Zephyrian fleet were indeed screaming, their bio-neural networks overwhelmed by weapons that attacked not just their hulls, but their actual nervous systems. They were dying in ways that their species had never imagined possible. "All ships retreat," Admiral Kexvara finally commanded. "Full retreat, emergency jump coordinates." But retreat required functional navigation systems, and the Korean electronic warfare was still active. Ships that tried to jump to hyperspace found themselves trapped in normal space, their escape routes blocked by technology they couldn't understand. The human ships moved through the fleeing aliens like sharks through a school of fish, each kill. Precise and efficient. There was no mercy, no hesitation, and no escape. Lieutenant Namsu Jin's voice was steady as she updated the tactical situation. "Enemy fleet strength now at 40% and dropping rapidly, Admiral. Estimated time to complete victory, 14 minutes. Admiral Cho nodded. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's expansion into space hadn't been the stumbling of primitives into civilized territory. It had been the arrival of apex predators into a galaxy that had forgotten what real hunters looked like. The silence after battle was more terrifying than the noise of combat itself. Where minutes before the void had been filled with plasma fire, explosions, and the screams of dying alien ships, now there was only the gentle drift of debris clouds that sparkled like deadly stars in the light of Kepler 4042's sun. Of the mighty Galactic Coalition fleet that had numbered 237 vessels, only 19 remained. These survivors floated dead in space, their crews too shocked to move, their commanders staring at tactical displays that showed the impossible. 7 human ships had not only survived an engagement against overwhelming odds, they had won so completely that the word victory seemed inadequate. Admiral Kexavara sat slumped in his command chair, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. His scales had shifted to the dull grey color that his species displayed in times of complete despair. Around him, his bridge crew worked in whispered tones, trying to restore basic systems while avoiding eye contact with their defeated leader. The holographic communicator in the center of the bridge flickered to life, and suddenly Admiral Cho, Hyunwoo, stood before them. He looked exactly as a conquering admiral should, calm, confident, and completely in control. His uniform was spotless, his expression serious but not cruel. Behind him, Captain Park Yun-hee of the ESS Incheon stood. At attention, her presence a reminder that Earth had not sent just one exceptional commander, but an entire fleet of them. "Commanders of the former Galactic Coalition fleet," Admiral Cho began, his voice carrying across space to every surviving alien bridge, "you attacked human territory, destroyed human property, and killed human civilians. The time for explaining. Your actions has passed. Now you will listen to the consequences." Admiral Kexvara tried to speak, his voice cracking like old leather. "Admiral Cho, surely we can discuss terms of surrender that are acceptable to both—" "You misunderstand your situation," Admiral Cho interrupted, his tone remaining perfectly level. "These are not negotiations. You are not prisoners of war. You are the surviving witnesses to what happens when someone threatens human space. Your job now is to carry this message back to your governments. The terms that followed would be transmitted across the galaxy within hours, reshaping the political landscape of dozens of worlds. Complete withdrawal from all human-claimed systems within 30 standard days. Full reparations for the destroyed colonies of New Busan, including payment for lost civilian lives, destroyed infrastructure, and economic damages. Formal recognition of Earth's territorial sovereignty over all systems within 50 light-years of human-inhabited worlds. But the most shocking demand was the last one. Any species that wishes to maintain diplomatic relations with Earth will establish formal embassy systems within human space. You will learn our languages, understand our customs, and treat human citizens with the respect accorded to members of the dominant galactic power. Captain Velnara, her gaseous form now a sickly yellow color, indicating fear among her species, whispered from her containment suit. Dominant galactic power. But the Zephyrian Empire has ruled this sector for 3,000 years. Admiral Cho's expression didn't change. The Zephyrian Empire ruled this sector for 3,000 years. Past tense. The galaxy has new management now. Across the surviving alien ships, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They weren't just defeated military forces. They were representatives of civilizations that had just learned they were no longer at the top of the galactic food chain. On the crystal ship Kethmaran, Commander Thexalon's harmonic frequencies had dropped to frequencies so low they barely registered on audio equipment. His entire species communicated through music, and right now his song was one of mourning, not just for the dead, but for the end of the galaxy as they had known it. The bioships of the Zephyrian fleet were in even worse condition. Their living hulls were covered in scars that looked like burns but weren't, marks left by weapons that had attacked their nervous systems directly. These ships would never fully recover, and their trauma would be passed on to the next generation of grown vessels. The entire Zephyrian military doctrine would need to be rebuilt from scratch. Meanwhile, aboard the ESS Dokdo, Captain Kim Dae-ho stood next to Admiral Cho on the observation deck, watching the alien survivors begin their long journey home. He had been rescued from the crippled New Busan, along with his 6 surviving crew members, and Korean medical technology was already working to heal wounds that alien weapons had inflicted. "Admiral," Kim said quietly, "do you think they'll actually honor these terms, or will they come back with even larger fleets?" Admiral Cho smiled, and Kim recognized the expression. It was the same look his grandfather had worn when telling stories about Korean soldiers who had held impossible positions against impossible odds. "Captain, let me share something with you. Those 7 ships you just watched destroy a galactic armada. They're not our main fleet, they're not even our second-line vessels." Kim's eyes widened. "Sir, what you witnessed today was the Deep Strike Fleet. Ships designed for rapid deployment and psychological impact. Back in the Sol system, we have construction yards that have been building vessels for 30 years in secret. Ships that make the Dokdo look like a patrol boat. The galaxy thinks they just met Earth's military. What they actually met was the tip of the iceberg." As if to emphasize his point, new contacts appeared on the tactical displays, dozens of them approaching from different directions. More human ships, arriving to secure the system and begin establishing the first official human military base outside of Sol space. Admiral Cho activated the ship-wide communications system. "Attention all vessels. This is Admiral Cho. Today, humanity has announced its arrival on the galactic stage, not as supplicants asking for acceptance, but as the force that will shape the galaxy's future. The stars have waited long enough for proper management." In the days that followed, news of the Battle of Kepler 442 spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly found themselves studying human languages and customs. Trade routes that had existed for millennia were rerouted to avoid human space until proper diplomatic channels could be established. The Galactic Council, which had debated for centuries about minor trade disputes, called an emergency session that lasted only 30 minutes. Their conclusion was unanimous. Humanity would be invited to join the Council not as junior members, but as the senior partner in a new galactic alliance. On the bridge of the Dokdo, now the flagship of Earth's first galactic fleet, Admiral A. Cho received reports from across human space. Colony ships were already being prepared for systems that had been declared off-limits just days before. Trade agreements were pouring in from species desperate to establish good relations with Earth's new government. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, and everyone knew it. The end.